Has started. Everyone to the SnowMirror Advanced Settings webinar. Once again, please mute your microphones to avoid any background noise. Please, if you have any questions during the webinar, please ask the questions, and I will try to save some time at the end of the webinar to answer your questions. Please let me introduce myself. Pavel Miller, and I am ServiceNow architect, mainly focusing on integrations. I am with Guide Vision. We are actually one of the biggest European ServiceNow partner, an elite partner. And SnowMirror is one of our products, and I am focusing on SnowMirror product management. You can see my email below. Please feel free to contact me directly. I will try to answer your technical questions or if you face any issues. About Guide Vision, we are a European ServiceNow partner focused on implementing ServiceNow. So this is our biggest business. We work with a blue chip company. And SnowMirror is actually coming from our development work. So this is one of our products. I'm always mentioning this to avoid confusion between SnowMirror and Guide Vision. So Guide Vision is the company, is the product. Let's look at the agenda. And before that, please allow me to ask the new joiners, please mute your microphones to avoid the background noise for the others. Thank you so much. What we've got on the agenda today, I have actually created this webinar mainly for our existing customers, but also for our evaluating customers to cover more advanced features and more advanced settings. SnowMirror is a tool that is very simple to use and configure. Which applies to, let's say, smaller and mid-sized ServiceNow instances. If you want to use SnowMirror effectively for especially bigger ServiceNow instances, it's, let's say, kind of necessary to understand a few else under the hood or use a bit advanced features. So I will be covering several topics here. The first one is for you to understand how the data load actually happens, what are the phases, how the algorithm looks like. Then I will be talking about consistency check and how to fix data inconsistencies, because I see that with many our users are not sure about resolving warnings and what are the options. And about additional operations on the synchronization level, delete strategies, how to handle schema updates. And there are several features in general settings. Let's move to the first topic. Once again, please mute your microphones. Please type your questions to the chat. I will try to answer them at the end. So let's look at the SnowMirror incremental algorithm. I think that this is very important to understand how SnowMirror works. And this is about the incremental load. We are not talking about the initial load, which we call clean synchronization. And this is about like delta load, which is happening every hour or every day. Several stages. The first load, the first step that is happening in the algorithm is a metadata load. So first of all, SnowMirror asks ServiceNow for, let's say, the schema structure or indexes about the information of the table. This is the phase where the schema or auto schema change happens, or where indexes are being added. So this is the first contact with ServiceNow. The next step is to count the records, or actually not only count the records that will be downloaded, but also what is the timestamp for the next. Because the incremental load has to run from a certain timestamp, but this timestamp is not being figured out from the SnowMirror, let's say, clock, like a client clock. Need a ServiceNow timestamp, a ServiceNow clock. And this is important. So the first, say, to ServiceNow to a certain table is to count the records and also to get the mux updated on timestamp to save for the next run as the starting point, as the baseline. There's a lot of errors in this phase because if you don't have sufficient permissions, then typically this initial step fails. This is the point where you might be getting a lot of insufficient rights exceptions from ServiceNow. That is the most important one, to actually download the new records, the updated ones. Done by querying the sysupdating column or the syscreated column, depending on a table. SnowMirror downloads all the records that are newer than the last timestamp, well, let's say the last successful run, the previous load. This is where the inserts and updates happening. So this is the phase. And the next phase is a delete strategy. So in this phase, SnowMirror tries to identify the delete, the removed records, and it performs the delete. We will be talking about the delete strategy later. So there are several strategies. Typically, SnowMirror is querying the sys audit delete table to figure out the delete. And the last step is a consistency check. So with every single run, the last step is to, let's say, check if the table is okay or if it is missing any record. The key knowledge to understand them, but also the logs, and then try to identify issues. Now let's talk about the consistency check, because again, this is a feature which is not being fully understood. Consistency check basically compares the number of records on both sides. The number of records from ServiceNow, then it performs select, count, star from a table, and it compares the record. As you can see, this is a very simple method. It's not a full CRC. This is not available through the ServiceNow API. Consistency check is just comparing, or it is identifying only missing records or the records that were deleted and shouldn't be there. So the consistency check is not missing updates. If SnowMirror has missed any updates, it's not available here. Good news is that the algorithm is designed even for tables under heavy load. So even if there was any insert or update the run itself, then there is no false warning or anything like that. And of course, if there is an inconsistency, you get a warning to work on solving this issue, because this typically means that you are missing some records or something is wrong. In this case, we are getting a lot of questions from our users. Okay, I get this warning. How should I resolve it? A very nice knowledge article on our website called Consistency Check FAQ, and you can Google it and go through this article to analyze what is basically wrong. Very simple solution, or there could be basically two situations. Either you have more records than you should have, or you have less records. Let's look at how the consistency check works. And I will show you live in the application itself. There is almost on the bottom of a log, there is this kind of check, and it says ServiceNow has, in this case, 1409 records, but MirrorDB has just 1353. Also, there was like 1,140 inserted or modified during the run. There is like an interval at the end of the line, which is like an allowed interval. To read the line correctly, it's not only about perfectly matching those numbers on the ServiceNow side and on the MirrorDB. It also depends on the load of the table if there was any change. So, to understand, let me show you how it looks like in the application itself. I will now switch to SnowMirror, and as you can see, there is a warning on the incident table. If you want to resolve such a consistency check warning, log, try to analyze. There's a lot of messages in the chat for everyone to mute. I'm not having an assistant here for the webinar. I cannot mute you manually. Please try to mute yourself to avoid any background noise. So let's look at the consistency check warning again. What you want to do is to go to the log, go to the very end, this particular line. It says ServiceNow has 88 incidents, but MirrorDB 82 incidents. We have basically two scenarios: either ServiceNow has more records, or MirrorDB records. If ServiceNow has more records, then it means that SnowMirror has missed some of the records. So it is either an ACL issue or some kind of ServiceNow data manipulation. For example, admin inserted without actually modifying the timestamp. DB has more records, then please inspect your delete strategy, as we will be talking about, because it seems that SnowMirror is not deleting the data correctly, and more records. Now, so this is the consistency check. For you, there is this important line. By the way, for all of you users, we will be improving, let's say, the display of a synchronization run somewhere here to include the most important stages and to print out some summaries if the stages were correct or not. But still, this kind of information will be there, like are the numbers of records on both sides and what you could actually do about that. So you've got this kind of inconsistency you can do about it. It's typically a differential load. This is a feature, it's not hard to find, but again, we are getting some confusion in our user base how the differential load actually works. First of all, knowledge is that it basically just compares the sysids on both sides. Algorithm downloads all the sysids from ServiceNow and compares these primary keys with the database table. So it can spot the missing records, and it can also spot the deletes, but it cannot find the missing updates. Key thing to understand, because it is downloading basically all of the primary keys. This is a very expensive operation. If you have a table with millions of records, it will take several minutes or even hours. It's expensive, and that's why it makes sense only for tables 2 million records or just a few million records. Definitely, you don't want to run this differential load on tables tens of millions of records. Really expensive operation. The updates that I'm talking here, if you want to identify missing updates, it's an even more expensive operation, because in this case, SnowMirror has to download the timestamps from ServiceNow and compare these timestamps with the records that are stored in the Mirror database. By identifying update is disabled by default, but I will show you how to enable this comparison. This is, let's say, a hidden gem. Almost no one uses this feature, but it could be very useful. I will have an example for that. Now, let's look at one more hidden feature, which is just 1 or 2 lines below the differential load. This is this synchronized 3 dots operation. This is a very detailed way or fine-grained way how to run a synchronization. As you can see here, you can select the type of a load. You can even select that it will be a dry run. You've got so many options here. Definitely a feature that is worth running when you are having an inconsistency issue. Let's dive into here. We're having an incident table which is inconsistent. So the simplest way is to run a differential load. So once again, this is a sort of an expensive operation. Download all of the sysids from ServiceNow in batches. Will then download the missing records, or it will delete. You can see now, missing 6 records, and like download it, and now we are having a consistent table. Let's look at ServiceNow. I will show you here. Take some data inconsistency again, simply by creating a new incident here.
Oh, okay. You know what that is then? A misutility report.
Incident. And also update.
You know what we got to do and
incidents like that.
Find out
we will be having
whether or not it was even done. Okay.
We will be having like 1 new incident and 2 incident updates. This is interesting. If I run differential synchronization, SnowMirror will identify records and not those 2.
See, that's the first time. I think that's the first time I heard that. Because he didn't tell me that.
Now you are missing 2
told me he just needed the thing from the state.
I
never heard about
able to identify it, and you can see that the status is green.
Not the state, but the county.
Excuse me, guys. There is someone who is still producing a lot of background noise. To mute all of you. So now we are missing 2 updates. So let's see how you can identify the updates. Synchronized 3 dots feature a very fine-grained run. Select a differential synchronization. You can even select a dry run, which means that it will just produce a log of missing records. It will not do the update. Here is the option to check the updates. Way how to check even for the missing updates, which is even more expensive. So let's run it. It has failed. You can see that it says not check for updates because the sysupdated column is missing. If we go to edit settings, you can see that this table is configured just to download number, priority, and short description. There is no sysupdated on downloaded. Important column, because otherwise SnowMirror is not able to identify the missing updates. This is what happens. SnowMirror downloads not only primary keys, but also sysupdated on from ServiceNow. It compares both values with the database value. You have to put it in like that. In this case, we will reload the table. Once again, let me show you. A new incident. Record. Do updates for 2 incidents. I go back to SnowMirror and run this dry run. Differential synchronization like dry run mode. Check for updates enabled. See that now it has identified 1 missing record, 2 missing updates, total of 3. And if you want to see the dry run log, detail of a synchronization, and here is the feature, download dry run results file. This is a very feature if you want to identify why you are missing these records. So here is the to insert and to update. Why would you run such a dry run? Because you can take these sysids, talk to your ServiceNow team, and try to identify why SnowMirror has missed these records. Because it could be the case that it was a part of a release, or there is an error in a script, or something like that. There has to be a reason why SnowMirror is missing records, and this is a tool that might help you to identify why the data inconsistencies are happening. This is a very powerful tool if you are getting stuck with these data inconsistencies. So this was the dry run, but we haven't updated the table itself yet. As I mentioned, the check for updates is being disabled by default, but there is another hidden setting here, edit settings, advanced settings. It says diff check updates. Now it's set to the system default setting, but you can actually enable it on a table level, or you can enable it on a global level. This feature is disabled by default because it is a very expensive operation. We wanted our users to enable this feature manually. So now if I enable such a feature, differential load, check for updates, will actually missing record and those two missing updates, and it will update the database. Are the features that are connected to data inconsistency. Perhaps one more interesting feature is this synchronize from. Again, I think a very powerful feature, but not as widely used. Especially if you have a super big table, smaller table, then you can resolve data inconsistency, clean and synchronize, like reloading the table from scratch. But if you have 20 million incidents, you don't want to reload it from scratch. It seems that you might be missing some of the updates. You can load the data, let's say, from 1 week back. This is just an incremental load, so it will download changes only, just the deltas from 1 week back. Might be a solution to certain situations before you actually reload the table from scratch, which might take several hours. See, it was like 9 incidents the last week that I either created or updated. It's about consistency and differential load. Feature that seems to be sort of simple. It is having unexpected conclusions or unexpected behavior is filtering the data. As you might know, basically on the main synchronization form, there is this ServiceNow encoded query. This is a way how to copy paste, now filter from the ServiceNow breadcrumbs to this particular field. Also, first important thing is to be very careful with ServiceNow side indexes. Now, typically has indexes on most of the important columns. But if you create a very special query and the fields that you are using for this query are not being indexed, then you are actually causing full table scans on the ServiceNow side. So I would be very careful with these queries. If you use it very often, please make sure that if a table is very big, then create the indexes on the ServiceNow side. The unexpected side effect if you add a filtering option to SnowMirror synchronization. There is an algorithm change. SnowMirror has to check for all the records that no longer match the condition. I'll show you an example. So it has to remove all the records from a table that are not matching the condition anymore. So SnowMirror basically has to download all the changes. So once again, imagine, and we will be having this in the example, imagine that the condition is priority is 1. So SnowMirror is downloading all the incidents priority 1. But what if someone changes priority 1 to priority 2? In this case, SnowMirror has to remove this record from the database. But how to identify such a record? Basically, the only way is to download all the sysids of the updated records and compare with the database if they should stay there or not. So adding a filter is actually making the synchronization algorithm more expensive, which is good, which is correct for most of the tables. But there are tables that are being often heavily filtered, for example, sysaudit or metric instance, and so on. But these tables are, let's say, insert-only tables. The updates are not happening in these tables. doesn't make sense to search for the updates and search for this kind of scenario. And I will be talking about this in the next week when talking about performance. So this is a good way how to improve performance by disabling these updates check. Show you an example which hopefully makes it more clear. Go to ServiceNow. Let's replicate just incident. Priority 1 is we've got 32 of these. If I want to filter the data, I can use this right click here, copy query here. Very convenient way. I go to SnowMirror again. Filter, if I want to filter the data, I'll just paste filter here. Changes. In this case, SnowMirror says you have changed the encoded query. I have to reload all the data. So let's reload all the data. Then now let's imagine you change one of the incidents from priority 1 to priority 2 and some other incident. Let's modify, makes the priority 2. Incident deleted. Incidents get the priority 1. This guy should be inserted. Back to SnowMirror. Now synchronize. Exactly this will happen. Records, the other record was deleted. We can check even the data. This test2 guy is got promoted to priority 1 and now it works as expected. Imagine that this wasn't an incident table, but it was an audit table containing tens of millions of records. And you actually created an encoded query which narrows down the table to just a few 100,000. In this case, SnowMirror would be doing unnecessary checks for all the inserted records if they are not matching the condition anymore and they should be removed. There's a very interesting option here again in the advanced setting. Download all updated, which is enabled by default, but you can disable it. In this case, it won't be checking for those records that were changed from priority 1 to priority 2 and should be removed. Let's see it as an example. Got that should be deleted, this test2 guy. A priority to 2, which means it should be removed. Note again. This Jira is stuck incident. Then insert it. Even if I update the incident, this record is inserted. Run it again. In this case, SnowMirror is not checking for all the updates, so all the records that should be removed. And as you can see, the delete did not happen. Consistency check warning. If I go to the data, test2 guy is here. It even didn't get updated because it doesn't match the condition anymore. So ServiceNow didn't return the update at all. That's the issue. Of course, this is like a performance optimization, but I think it is a very useful feature for read-only tables or insert-only tables, but almost nobody uses this, this cool feature, which might save you a lot of time. Let's move to another topic. We are getting a lot of confusion in our user base how this strategy actually works. So delete strategy is a way how to identify removed records from ServiceNow. 4 different strategies, and the default one is called audit. The audit strategy means that SnowMirror checks the system journal table, which is called sys_audit_delete. All of the so-called audited tables, a record every time you delete it. Fortunately, this should be like, unfortunately, let's say not all of the deletes in all of the configurations create a record there. For example, a batch delete, I've got a mistake here on the slide, a batch delete might not insert such a record, or not all of the tables are being audited. More strategies that you can apply, difference and fast difference. So a difference strategy, basically a brute force comparison. It is a very similar to a differential load, but it is designed just for checking for the deletes. Basically, it downloads all the sysids ServiceNow, and again, comparing it to the table, checking for the lead. So what we see with our users, they don't understand that this different strategy is very, very expensive. Please do not set this different strategy for tables having more than 1 million records. I would prefer, you know, just using it up to 500,000 records. Definitely, if you use this strategy for an incident table with millions of records, this will consume a huge amount of time because it will be basically downloading all the primary keys from such a table. Very careful with this strategy. There is a fast difference strategy, which is a new feature in the latest release. But this feature is a very optimistic algorithm that is useful for tables where deletes are not happening that often, and also where the traffic of the table is very low. Because what it does is that SnowMirror finishes a synchronization, and SnowMirror then compares the number of records on both sides. Let's say ServiceNow is having 100 records, database is having 100 records, and there was no update in that table during the run. So SnowMirror expects that everything is all right and there is no delete. These two not match, then splits the interval, splits the table in half, or several intervals, and it does the same algorithm in these like sectors or sections. So again, comparing the numbers on both sides and comparing an update or not. This is a very useful feature for tables where deletes do not happen that often, and also where there are no updates or inserts during the run. So it might be useful for some CMDB tables or kind of table. Also, we've got several users using the delete strategy, or they are setting the delete strategy to none. This is especially useful for archiving, or if you want just to keep track of the record. By the way, and I will show you, there is a soft delete feature. It means you can have the audit delete strategy here, but the records stay in the database. And soft delete means that there is a flag that saying that, hey, this record was deleted, but the data is there. So again, this might be useful for archiving. Where you find this delete strategy, if I go to edit settings, see that this is the setup here. In this case, incident is being audited, validated. This is a useful button mainly for validating the delete strategy or checking for indexes. As you can see, everything is all right here because the table is being audited, so this strategy will work. If I go to sys audit, it's to be incorrect because I'm trying to apply the audit strategy on a system table, which is not being audited. Validate, you get a warning that this table is not being audited. So this is one of the most common mistakes in setups. Please understand the delete strategy and adjust your setting. Topic, again very interesting, is schema update. What if there is a new field on the ServiceNow side, or what if you want to add a new field to your replicated table? You've got two approaches. Either you can do it manually, or there is an auto schema update feature. There is also a feature called schema change notification. You can get an email about that. So you can be notified that ServiceNow guys have released some new fields or modified the data types, and you can adjust your settings. I will show you. The latest features is that you don't have to truncate the table if you add a new field. The thing is that if you add a new field to a table, you basically have to fill in the data for that column. But of course, if this field is brand new on the ServiceNow side, there is no data for the existing records anyway. You can, as I say here on the last bullet point, you can either fill in default value or null value to avoid a full table reload. Let me show you in the application. Let's go to the incident. And we want to add, let's say, a caller. Just these fields, and you can add a caller. Now, dialog saying you are adding a new column, but you have to do something about it. So either you reload all the data, you have the data even for the column, caller ID, or you are okay that you will be missing some of the data. You can either default value or leave it empty. A manual option here what to do. So if you say fill in just the default value, then no reload will happen. The caller, the data is there. The caller is empty. Talking about notification, change notifications. Set up like that. All your synchronizations, you can set up an email. If there is a schema change, you can get an email about it. Regardless if you use the auto schema update or if you use updates. Let's look at auto schema update feature. You can enable it like that. Means that SnowMirror will check every time there is a new field on the ServiceNow side, it will automatically add it to the table. Again, you've got two options. It means that SnowMirror will actually truncate the table and reload it every time there is a new field, or it will fill in the default value events. If you enable it, all of the fields by default are, of course, you can like exclude some of the fields from that. Let's clean and synchronize that. Let's go to ServiceNow and create a new field. Create a security incident field, for example. False. Let's move it to security incident. It is here. A new field. Now, let's look at SnowMirror. Settings. And the security incident is not here. Again, a lot of confusion happening. SnowMirror is caching the ServiceNow metadata for about 1 hour. You have to go to settings, general settings, cache. If you want to see a brand new field, less than an hour old, you have to clear the cache. The field is here. That's why it takes a bit longer. As you can see, it is here. But because we have this auto schema update enabled, if I run synchronization, run will actually identify there is a field and it will include it in the data. You don't have to do it manually. To the data, it's here, security incident. At the very end, filled in data. Check it in the log. This is part of the first step, the metadata phase. The schema section, and it says new columns, new security incident. Now it is adding. How the schema change works. This is an important topic. Every time your ServiceNow team upgrades ServiceNow to London, Madrid, to New York, there is always a schema change. To deal with that, you have to understand how it works on the ServiceNow side or the SnowMirror side. The last topic before the questions section, there are a few hidden gems in general settings. Temporary tables. You can temporary tables every time there is a full load. This is a very useful feature because your original table stays available for your reporting. Only after SnowMirror downloads all the data from scratch, then it basically swaps the tables. It drops the original one, it renames the temporary one. Of course, there is a con. If you have any custom indexes or custom permissions for your tables, this is being lost because of that. That's why this feature is disabled. Also, a way how to replicate indexes ServiceNow website and apply those indexes to your mirror tables. This soft delete feature I was talking about, you can enable archiving if you have an archiving plugin in your ServiceNow. So the message for you is an interesting page in the settings section with some advanced setup. Where the features I was talking about. You can enable the temporary tables for full loads, enable index replication. Of course, this is a bit expensive because SnowMirror has to check another metadata from ServiceNow. For those of you that want to use the AR underscore tables in ServiceNow, the archiving tables, you have to enable this support. Soft delete setting. There are some system settings like check all updates or database updates. So all of the interesting configurations on a global level are available here. That's the topic for today, all of the topics. Type your questions into the chat. I will try to answer questions. Interesting question from Dimitri that use a glide record auto sys field false, which doesn't update the sys updated on field, then SnowMirror is basically not able to identify that. Yes, that's correct, Dimitri. SnowMirror, the only way to identify the updates is check the sys updated on, or if there is no sys updated on, then sys created on timestamp. And if for some reason a script does not update this timestamp, or the same happens if a record is part of an update set. If a record is coming from an update set, again, these timestamps are not being updated, and SnowMirror has to miss those records. So the inconsistencies might happen for several reasons. One of a very, let's say, advanced reason for missing records is, let's say, a race condition on the ServiceNow side. So if a lag between setting a timestamp and actually writing to a hard drive of a database spends a long time, then SnowMirror again can miss it. You know, very rare case, we've got this incremental offset feature. In this case, you can overlap incremental updates for, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 seconds. You can avoid these race conditions in the ServiceNow platform. You can see here also that you can manually select timestamp. So this is, again, a very customized feature or customized way. So if you have a very, very special table, not working with the system timestamps, and you are having a custom timestamp, you can switch to the timestamp here. Interesting question from Cisco. I see default time zone is in UTC, and there's also a time zone setting. Are two different time zones for purpose? Let me explain. By default, all of the timestamps are coming in the UTC time zone. And this is also a best practice how to store the dates, because you don't want to recalculate the time zones every time. But we've got a lot of, let's say, users that are not so advanced. Their ServiceNow instance and the whole company sits in a single time zone. They simply didn't want to recalculate the time zones in their reporting. There is a feature that you can override time zone setting, and SnowMirror will actually recalculate all the coming timestamps to this destination time zone. I recommend you to use this feature, because it's really for, I would say, beginners in reporting or beginners in data integration. It might be useful in certain scenarios. Perhaps the last we can make. Stefan, is it possible to make complex encoded queries to filter out data from a parent or child table? Yes, Stefan. Basically, all of the queries that are available in the ServiceNow filter are available in SnowMirror. This is the same ServiceNow feature, just over the API. Limitation, and again, this is a bit more advanced. The only limitation here is if you create, let's say, a time window, then SnowMirror is not always working correctly with this time window. For example, if you download the data starting with January 1st, then it works correctly. But if you create a query to download the data from the last 3 months, then it won't work correctly, because the last 3 months window is a moving window, and SnowMirror is not able to identify the records that actually moved out of this window. So this is the limitation of, let's say, complex ServiceNow encoded queries. All right, thank you so much, guys, for joining the session. I believe that you have even more questions, and I wasn't able to go through all of the questions. So please send me your questions via email, mueller@snowmirror.com, and I will answer those questions personally. You will have this recording on our website, and please be invited to the next week, and because we are hosting a performance webinar with many tips and tricks how to adjust your SnowMirror to perform better. Thank you so much for joining. Have a nice day.